Hey guys, it's Ari here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to another Sims 4 speed build. So today I have a kind of fun build I'm excited to share with you guys. Today we're building a nightclub and we're building in San Myshuno. I think that's right. I think I'm saying it right now. But yeah, we're building a nightclub and this is a very tool mod kind of build. Basically the whole structure of this build is made using the tool mod. But anyway, I saw this picture last week on Pinterest and I'll go on and put it on the screen now where you guys can see what I was going for, because with this build I was kind of trying to recreate this. It's not nearly as detailed or anything like that, but I was kind of trying to recreate the shape of this building. And from what the pin says, it looks like this was a concept for a museum in Hungary, and I couldn't tell that it ever was actually built. So I think the pin says something about 2012, so that was a little while ago, so I can't tell if it was something that ever actually happened or if it was just a concept, or maybe it's something that they're still working on. I don't know anything about that, but if you guys know, let me know in the comments, because I think it's absolutely beautiful. And when I realized that it was kind of a concept for an actual building, I was really interested in that, because I would love to see a building that looked like this in reality. Like, I think the design is just absolutely stunning and it's just really beautiful. So I don't think it's an actual build, but you guys can definitely correct me if I'm wrong. And if you actually want to see the pin and kind of see for yourself, it should be pinned on my Pinterest under build inspiration, I think is where I would have it, like Sims 4 build inspiration, I think is what it's called. But anyway, I just think this is absolutely stunning. Whoever designed this is just absolutely beautiful and such a cool design. And I also realized while I was kind of looking into it that apparently the guy who invented the Rubik's Cube was actually from Hungary. So I didn't know that. So there's a little fun fact for you guys. I've never really been good with a Rubik's Cube. I've never been able to like solve it or anything like that. I just don't have the patience. But I do think they're fun, and I think that it's definitely an interesting shape for a building for sure. And so I hope you guys enjoy this as much as I did. I think this has been the first build in a little while that I really enjoyed the way it came out. Like, I was happy with just about every part of it. Maybe not every part of it, but for the most part, I was really proud of the way this one turned out. So I hope you guys enjoy it as well. But to talk about the structure of the build, I'll first go on and tell you guys that I'm really bad at explaining stuff. So this is probably going to sound really confusing at some points, and I'm really sorry for that. But to start out building, I went on and placed 3 floors. I should have placed 4 floors, and that's what you can kind of see that I'm doing right now. I'm having to move this second layer up to the 4th floor, and I'll kind of try to explain why. But like I said, I'm kind of bad at explaining this kind of stuff. But basically, to build this, I needed to have 2 sections for the actual structure of the build. So I needed to have the bottom structure that's kind of tilted separately, and then the top structure is also tilted in a different direction. So I decided to just separate them there, because I did need it to kind of be halved. Because if it isn't halved, you can't actually play with that, because this isn't normal typical walls. So if you put walls down, you know, it doesn't affect this. And so I needed it to be on separate floors, if that makes sense. And I technically could have started out on the ground floor, but the 2 items that I'm using to make this build, one of them is a base game shelf, so that's fine. But the other item is the glass floor tile from the Island Living Pack, and I cannot remember what the actual item name is. That's not what it's called, but it comes with the Island Living Pack. And it basically lets you see through the bottom of a floor like a window. And so if you place it on the ground floor, it will kind of show through like to the dirt. I don't know if it's actually showing through to like the basement level, because it doesn't really look that deep, but that's what you're seeing is like dirt. And so I've done builds like this with this item before, and I've just kind of learned that you want to start off on the 2nd floor if you don't want it to kind of have a glitchy effect, or if you don't want to risk that. And I did not want to risk having to, you know, redo this or rebuild this. So I went on and started on the 2nd floor. And so far you guys have seen me kind of layer those items around, and the glass floor tile works really well because they just snap onto the grid, and so they line up perfectly together. And then as far as the shelf goes, I did have to place those freely, and so they're not perfect. In some spots you can kind of see that I'm not very good at that. it definitely would have worked better if those snapped to the grid as well. But anyway, I went on and laid out basically what you can kind of see at the top of the build right now. I just went on and did that on the second floor. Then the third floor I left empty because the third floor is where the actual nightclub is going to be. So that's where your Sims are actually going to be walking around. So I wanted that to be empty, but the way that the second floor stuff will show when you have the third floor up, and so, but it doesn't get in the way. So you can actually still see, and you can move the camera around and click stuff and everything, so it doesn't get in the way. And then, so the top part of the build is on the fourth floor, and that is just so that you can see while you're playing. It's just so that it's out of the way. It's kind of like trying to do a walls down thing with the tool mod, if that makes sense. I don't think that does really make sense, but hopefully you guys kind of know what I'm talking about. Basically, I just had to stagger it like that so that you could actually see the floor or see the nightclub at some points during the game. So if you move the floor option all the way up, then you can see the whole build. But depending on where you have it, you may not see the whole actual structure of the build. Anyway, I laid those down twice, and then everything else after that, I kind of just copied and pasted depending on where I was at in the build or where I needed to place something. Like the top part had to be copied and pasted from the top layer, and then everything else could come from the bottom. And then the only other thing I think I want to mention about the structure of the build is that to kind of create the look of having a ceiling, which this build doesn't have, I did end up using the lap guides from the Get Together pack. You can see at the bottom of that top part, I just placed it, and I have to move it around a few times because then I remembered that I didn't actually have anything on the top of the second level, and so I had to add that as well. But those are the pool lap guides from the Get Together pack, and they worked really well because they kind of get bigger, but they're not very like obtrusive or obstructive. And so they worked really well, and I was kind of happy with that. I always forget about that object, and I tend to use the Immaculate Shelf or the Spa Day item, the like Stony Goodness Slab. I tend to use those a lot, and then I forget about this little lap guide object. But it does work pretty well, and it does let the tool mod manipulate it, which is really, really nice. But anyway, that is just to kind of close in the structure. It's just for appearances. And then the one that covers up the bottom half of the build actually is placed on the fourth floor as well, because if it wasn't, then it would kind of go back to, you wouldn't be able to actually click around or play with this build. And I did want this build to be playable because I kind of wanted to keep it in my game. But I will go on and tell you guys that it did end up being super laggy. It wasn't terrible. I mean, I've definitely had worse lags before with builds, but it's kind of just a little bit slow. It takes it a little bit to load, and then if you're trying to build on it at this point, it just gets, I don't know, it's a little bit laggy. I think it's just because of the amount of items that I used, because of the structure just has, you know, it has a lot of little pieces to make it up. And I had kind of thought about just using one of the floor tiles for each box instead of using 9 little ones, because I definitely could have done that, and it would have helped a little bit with the lag and everything like that. But I really liked having the more detail with the smaller tiles than having just really one big one. So I didn't actually try it with one, so I don't know how it would have looked, but I felt like this one just looked a little bit more interesting. Or I felt like it would have looked interesting. Like I said, I didn't try the other way. I did actually build this twice though. I didn't build the whole thing. I didn't finish it. But I started building it twice before this time. And I had to start over each time because I would forget about something or I would mess up something. And so it was just easier to start it over at certain points than to actually try to fix something, because that was my biggest concern while I was building this, is that I would accidentally grab an item and move it without realizing it, and I wouldn't be able to fix it, or it would be really difficult to fix. And so I was really kind of very hyper aware of that, but I did end up doing it twice without realizing it. So at one point, I don't know when, I still don't know when, but at some point I accidentally grabbed one of the shelves, but thankfully it stayed in the same place. It just moved it to the ground floor instead of the second floor. So if you're on the very like bottom floor, I don't know what to call that, so I feel weird talking about it, but if you're basically on the very bottom, if you have all the like not walls down, but hopefully you guys know what I'm talking about. You see that one random shelf because I accidentally clicked on it, I guess, but it doesn't mess with anything. But I just left it instead of trying to change that because I feel like I would have made it worse if I had tried to move it back to the second floor. And then I realized later at some point that I had accidentally had some of my floor tiles shift that were on the very bottom of the build. So thankfully it's not very noticeable anyway, and I did try to fix it. And you'll be able to see that at some point. You can see it. I don't remember exactly when I noticed it, but I think they moved back really good. I think they're back where they were supposed to be. But I think what happened is when I was trying to place the stairs, because I didn't know if I was going to place stairs or a ladder for this build, I placed some stairs and then I deleted them. And I think that's when it happened, but I'm honestly not sure because if I had known it, I would have fixed it right then. So that was my biggest concern as I was building this, that I would somehow mess up the structure. And then I did end up going with a ladder instead of stairs just because the stairs were very long and very noticeable, and I just didn't really like the way they looked, even though I think it would have been more realistic for it to be stairs because it's not many nightclubs that you're like climbing a ladder to get to. There's probably not any nightclubs that you would enter via a ladder, but I just thought it looked better than the stairs, to be honest. And so it's The Sims, so it doesn't matter. And the ladder is a lot less noticeable as well. And I had to delete a few floor tiles for the ladder. I don't think I had to delete them for it to be functional. I didn't try it. I just went on and deleted them anyway, just for the appearance. But with a ladder, I definitely had to delete less of them than with the stairs. And it kind of killed me to delete them because, like I was talking about, it would be really hard to put them back. And they're deleted now. They're gone forever. So I didn't want to move where the ladder was after I had placed it. And yeah, it was hard to delete those because it was just part of such a big structure. But yeah, this build is functional. I haven't said that already, but you probably saw in the intro and you'll see in the end screens that there are Sims up there. It's totally functional as a venue. And I play tested it and everything seemed to be working. I didn't like click on every single dance floor or anything like that, but the bartender was able to get in there and everything seemed to be working okay. I did need a bathroom for this venue though, and I didn't really want to ruin the vibe of the build by adding an enclosed room inside the building. So I just decided to use one of those debug public restrooms. And I used the one from City Living, so it kind of matches the surroundings and everything. But I just used that to kind of fulfill that requirement. And I just put some of the sinks beside it. I think I chose the one from Outdoor Retreat, so it kind of makes sense because it's outside. So it kind of looks like it blends in with the restroom and everything. But I kind of hid the restroom back behind the build too, so you don't really notice it. And I added the dining tables outside because I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do for the inside. And it's a pretty small space because of how much of the floor I had to trim away, because basically I just had to get it to fit inside this building. And it's not perfect either. There's places where it just doesn't fit really well. And I've actually just noticed that the shelf I was talking about actually is missing right now. I can see it on the screen. So I will have to go back and try to fix that because I really don't know what's happened to it. I guess I did move it. So I will have to try to fix that as well. Let me know if you guys think I should upload this to the gallery. I haven't decided yet because I feel like it's such a kind of weird, quirky build. And when I first started playing and seeing other people's builds, this would have confused me so much, which I wouldn't have known about the tool mod or anything like that then. So I don't know, but let me know what you guys think. And I do hope you guys enjoyed this because I had a lot of fun building this. I feel like the last few builds I've done, I haven't been super happy with them. And I always find something that I don't like. And so then I kind of, I don't know. You know how it is. You just don't really feel as good about every single build you do. But this build, I am just really happy with it. It makes me happy, and it's a build that I would like to have in my game. And so that definitely makes me happy because that's kind of why I enjoy building. So it was a fun process. And I will say just one more thing. At first, I was actually gonna do the floor of this build, I wanted it to be glass as well so that you could see through it, just kind of keep it on theme with the rest of the build. But I had so many of those glass dance floors from the get together pack that it just kind of looked weird, and I couldn't cover up the corners or anything like that without it just looking really messy. And so I ended up just deleting that, and there still are dance floors, but there's not as many of them and it doesn't look as crowded. But anyway, that is it for this build. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. I always love hearing from you guys. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you all are doing really well, and hopefully we will talk soon again with another speed build.